If you're wondering how to, to just get some tips and tricks about how to run your interviews, you're at the right place. We'll be starting the interview webinar shortly. Just a reminder to mute your mics and cameras off, please, to get the best experience out of the webinar. And make sure to stick to the end for a chance to win one of our Teamies gift cards. So until we have more students, just a quick question. Who attended the event tomorrow and how did you find it? Maybe just react using the React feature on the Teams, or just write something in the chat if you attended, and how did you find that? I'm not seeing any reactions. Does it mean that nobody attended? If you attended, please just use the reaction, react, or just put in the chat.
I attended, and I thought it was a fabulous event, Rose. Thank you for asking. Yeah, who attended Career Day yesterday in Surrey and Tuesday in Richmond? We got some thumbs up there. All right. You know what, Rose? I think I'm going to go ahead and get started.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Chantel, it looks like you're on mute.
Chantel, you're muted. Yeah.
I am on mute. Thank you so much. Yeah, so as Rose was saying, you're in the right place if you're here for the interview webinar. Please do keep your mics on mute and your cameras turned off. This webinar will be recorded, so please do be aware of that as well, and it will be uploaded onto our YouTube page. So before we get started with today's webinar, I would like to do a territorial acknowledgement. We at Kwantlen Polytechnic University respectfully acknowledge that we live, work, and study in a region that overlaps with the unceded, traditional, and ancestral First Nations territories of the Musqueam, Katzie, Semiahmoo, Tawasin, Kikite, and Coquitlam, and with the lands of the Kwantlen First Nation, which gifted its name to this university. In the cause of reconciliation, we recognize our commitment to address and reduce ongoing systemic colonialism, oppression, and racism that Indigenous peoples continue to experience. Okay, today's webinar and all the webinars leading up to Career Day and after Career Day is brought to you by your Career Development Center at KPU. And the CDC does include career services, volunteer services, co-op, which I'm sure many of you know about, and employer relations. And you can find out a little bit more of what we do and how we can help you by scanning this QR code and perhaps to make an appointment with a career coach. Please do follow us on one of our many platforms, and the addresses are down there below. Okay, question out for everyone. Feel free to write your answer in the chat. For those of you that attended Career Day, and hopefully it's all of you, where will you be applying? So go ahead and type that in the chat. Of all the employers that were here yesterday, I think there was about 40, 42, and about 20 in Richmond. Where will you be applying after this year's Career Day 2024? Go ahead and write that in the chat. maybe not ready to apply yet. Maybe what are some who did you have some interesting conversations with perhaps? And yes, and I'm seeing maybe some volunteering as well. Maybe you're interested in volunteering.
We have some answers coming in. Yahtzee, Kid Start for volunteering, Surrey School District, and hopefully we'll have some more answers here. And until we get some more answers, I think, Chantel, we just missed one detail. This session will be, or this webinar will be recorded. So if you want to refer back to this presentation, it will be on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, I did mention that at the beginning. Yeah.
Okay, so just a reminder then.
Yeah, absolutely. Good
Thank you.
reminder. All right, perfect. So hopefully, yeah, you had some good conversations. Um, we had quite a few events leading up to Career Day. Career Day. So I'd like to see some thumbs up. Who attended the career panel or the employer panel, rather, that kind of kicked things off last Monday. Then we had resumes and cover letters. We had the Federal Public Service providing a webinar information session for us. And then, of course, a networking and navigating career day. BC Public Service was here. We, of course, had career day in Richmond, career day in Surrey, today's interview tips. That's a lot. There's a lot going on. And of course, the prize draw. So I'm curious to know, Rose, if you can tell me, can we get some thumbs up for those of you rather, that will be joining us on Instagram Live tomorrow between 1:45 and 2:30? I don't even know if it'll take us till 2:30, but how many people are going to join us for that on Instagram Live? Find out if you won. So what are we looking for? Well, what are we going to be giving prizes out for? Well, if you attended the webinar, any of the webinars, your name will be put in those draws. And of course, on the actual career day event. So whether you were in Richmond or Surrey, if you submitted a punch card or a stamp card, your name will be put in for a draw to win either the Stanley Cup, like an actual drinking cup, or a gift card, or Sony headphones. So do we have some thumbs up there of people who will be joining us, Rose, for Instagram Live
Yes,
tomorrow?
yes, I saw a lot of thumbs up, so which is great.
Yay.
We'll be waiting for
Awesome.
you tomorrow.
I look forward to that. It's fun giving away things, right? It's fun giving away stuff. And you've earned it. I'm curious. So you don't need to do a thumbs up for that, but I'm curious to know if there's some folks out there who've attended all of our webinars and Career Day. If that's you, I really hope you win. I really hope you win some whatever prize it is you want to win. So, okay, let's just get started with today's webinar, all about interviewing. So we're going to kick things off with some tips, things to do before, like right before the actual interview. And then during the interview, particularly, I'm going to spend a lot of time focusing on STAR. So how to answer those behavioral style questions. Not going to cover the more general questions during this webinar. The strong focus will very much be on STAR and answering those behavioral style questions. Employers love to ask them, so it just makes good sense for us to focus on those. What to do like way before the interview, like even now, what to do now to help you with future interviews. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. What to do right after the interview, and how to kind of set yourself up to be successful at interviewing overall. And that will include setting SMART goals for yourself. Then we're going to wrap it up and we're going to answer some questions. So for anyone who does have any questions throughout the webinar, I will hopefully get to those at the end of today's webinar. So please put them in the chat. And if you can just preface any of your questions with a Q so that we know that that is a question you would like answered. And that will be at the end of the webinar. Okay, so right before the interview, when you're preparing for the actual interview, it's important to understand what is the purpose of an interview to begin with, right? Just like when you're putting together your resume, you want to ask yourself, well, what is the purpose of a resume? It's not to get you the job. It's to get you the interview for that particular job, right? So once you understand that, then you can work hard to customize that resume with each application. So similar to an interview, what is the purpose of an interview? Well, it's for them and you to determine, can you do the job? Skill. Do you want to do the job? Motivation. And is this where you want to be? Right? Is it the right fit for you? So the purpose of an interview, can you do the job? Do you want to do the job with them? And do you think you would fit there? Is that a place that you actually want to be? To help you prepare for the interview, and hopefully you've done this long before you even applied to this company, but really take a deeper dive into their values. Like, what's important to this particular company, and what is it that they do, and why do they do it? That's important to understand, because this will help you to answer a good bulk of the questions, particularly the what do you know about the company and why do you want to work here? Dress to impress, but also for you to feel good. So your outfit should be clean. It should fit you well. You should be showered and presentable for the day of the actual interview. And to get an idea for perhaps what outfit you should choose. Hopefully, maybe going back to that networking webinar, hopefully you've done a little bit of research. Perhaps you've had some information meetings with people at this company and you've kind of assessed the type of environment it is. And hopefully you've determined it's the type of environment you want to work in. And you'll get an idea for the type of dress that people wear in that particular environment. Is it super casual? Is it super professional? Make sure that your outfit really does reflect that theme that they have going on over there. Know where you're going, and make sure that you've loaded up the compass card, you have gas in your car, you have change for the meter, or you have the app on your phone for parking. Know where you're going. If there are more than one locations, make sure that you are going to the correct location. Then, of course, practice. You can practice answering job interview questions with a career coach at KPU, with a trusted friend who's going to provide you with good feedback. There's also a feature on Career Connection where you can actually do a mock interview and watch yourself back answering questions. You can also just do it on your own video on your phone as well, or on your laptop. If the interview will be online, and I have one slide on this, because at this point, we're in 2024, you all know online etiquette. So I'm going to touch on this a little bit, but get out of bed, change out of your pajamas, and the same outfit from head to toe that you would wear in person, put it on, even if it's for a virtual interview. Make sure you have a professional background. I have the Career Day image as part of my background. So, you can have an image like that. Ideally, though, you don't have any images behind you. You have maybe a bookcase or a plain wall, definitely not a window. Um, or if you don't have the best background, then just blur the background. And then also pay attention to your resting face. I've mentioned this a lot of times. When we're in an interview, they're going to be doing a lot of the talking. They're going to talk about the company. They're going to talk about the position, the team, the particular role, and you'll be spending a lot of time listening. And so pay attention to that resting face, right? Sometimes we might come across as bored or angry in our resting face. So just pay attention to that when you're perhaps recording yourself answering questions. That might help a little bit. During the interview, or as you're just about to start, arrive 5 to 10 minutes early. Try not to arrive much earlier than that. They might feel a little bit of pressure to bring you in earlier. So 5 to 10 minutes early is a pretty good number to stick with. If you're there very early, stay out in your car, or maybe just take a bit of a walk before you get there. Actually, walking is probably a good idea. That'll help take away some of those nerves. While you're sitting there waiting to be called in for the meeting, review your notes, or maybe flip through one of the magazines that might be there, but avoid looking at your phone And with that said, make sure your phone is on mute. Greet everyone that you meet with a smile and pay attention to how they interact with each other as well. That's pretty good intel for what type of workplace it is. So during the actual meeting, I would suggest that you bring in a pad, pad of paper and a pen, because this is a good opportunity for you to, of course, gain a lot of information. I already mentioned that it's very likely they're going to be doing a lot of the talking, and so you'll gain a lot of really great insight into the role and the company and perhaps the people that you'll be working with. Jot down notes, just a word or two at a time. You don't need to be writing a novel, but it will also give you the opportunity to write down the names and positions of the people that are interviewing you, follow-up dates, and also to maybe jot down new questions that you might develop, because you might find that if you walk into the interview with questions that you want to ask them at the end of the meeting, do you have any questions for us? The answer is always yes. And you'll have questions prepared. But because they're doing a lot of the talking, you might find that those questions that you had prepared are being answered. And so you might start to get a little nervous or a little preoccupied with not having any questions to ask them. So having that pad and the pen will allow you the opportunity to develop new questions that you can ask at the end of the meeting. Again, just jot down a word or two to remind you of those questions. Be prepared for a handshake, a elbow, a fist bump. I had a question about this at the networking and navigating webinar. Someone had asked, should we shake hands with the employer who is at the table at Career Day? I would say, let them kind of take the lead on this a little bit. It's the same thing with an interview, and certainly for yourself, you might not be comfortable with a handshake, so you can just do a little wave like this, or you can even motion towards, is this, should I sit here? But they'll probably take the lead on that and invite you to sit down, and yeah, or there might, you never know, there might be a fist bump, whatever. And then breathe and relax. So once you sit down, take a nice deep breath, and get your pen ready to jot down the occasional note. Body language. So the same idea. I kind of recommend that you let the interviewer kind of take the lead a little bit. If they're particularly formal, then you might want to mirror that a little bit and sit a little bit straighter perhaps. And if they're a little more casual, maybe not take it as casual as they are, but relax yourself a little bit and be, feel free to follow their lead. Maintain eye contact, but look away when they ask you the question, eye contact, and then when you're thinking about it, look away. So don't feel the need to continuously stare at them and never break eye contact. But eye contact is particularly important, when you first meet each of the panelists. There might be one or more people interviewing you. But look away when you're, of course, writing down questions that you might have and when you're thinking about the answer to the question that they just asked. Show them that you're open and you're receptive. So while they're talking, nod, smile, lean in, which in turn is what you're looking for when you start answering questions. When you start answering questions using the STAR method, which we will get to, the goal is to have them lean in, right? It's story time. Lean in, and that will let you know that they are in fact engaged. When it comes to answering interview questions, I find that in my own experiences doing mock interviews, that students will often feel the need to answer the question immediately after being asked. And it's okay to take a few seconds to think about it. So the process here will be, the question is asked, listen. Hopefully you understand the question. If you don't, that's okay. Ask for clarification. right? Can you reword that? Or can I ask what you mean by that? Or something along those lines. Think about your answer, collect your thoughts, and then answer it. Right. And so that's a beautiful thing going back to the star format. It does allow you to collect your thoughts and to organize them in a nice, concise um, manner, which also allows you to answer it in its full entirety as well. Support your answers with examples as much as possible. And this doesn't just go with behavioral style questions, but it also goes with general interview questions. Right? What would you say is your greatest strength? Identify what the strength is, and then provide an example of when that strength helped you out or helped the team out. Um, and that'll really help to kind of elevate your interview game. Of course, use the STAR technique. I've mentioned this already a few times, but use the STAR technique, and we will be diving a little bit deeper into STAR. And just a reminder for those of you that have your mics on, can you please mute those? Thank you. Okay, so STAR broken down. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about STAR, right? So STAR stands for situation, task, action, result, and sometimes I like to add that other R for reflection. So the situation, you briefly describe the scene, describe the situation, the who, what, where, when. Um, it might start something like, while I was in my third year at KPU, I had a group assignment, right? So you are building the scene for them and you're giving them all the details because they weren't there and they don't know. So it really should include all the details. At this point, that's when you want them leaning in. If you have the lean in, you're good. The task. So situation task, explain the task that you're working on or the particular challenge that you were facing. Um, and the next piece is action. This is your opportunity to shine. This is where you're really demonstrating the skill set that reflects the question, the original behavioral style question. If your response has to do with working in a group project, avoid we. This is all about you. Your answer should include all the steps that you took and the skills that you used in order to achieve the goals of the group. So make sure that you really are specific to you in that moment. And then, of course, we wrap it up with a result. Now, sometimes the results aren't necessarily positive, but typically speaking, they end on a positive note. So of the four components here, they're all important and they all should be included in your response. But the most important thing here is the A, it's the action, because it's really that bit that you did, the steps that you took, the skills that you used, that really do matter. And I will give you an example of applying STAR into this. Now you might say to me, okay, this is all good, Chantel, but I need to have some stories to tell. And I've written a number of articles on, how to develop those stories for yourself, because we can, all of us career coaches, career advisors, we can keep telling you about STAR, and you probably have that embedded into your brain by now. But the stories that you choose to tell are completely up to you, and it's up to you to develop those stories for yourself. So I have a little quote here. It's thrifty to prepare today for the wants of tomorrow. So there's no better time to start developing those stories for yourself than today. And what we want to do is we want to control the narrative. We want to control the narrative of our interview. Right. And so we know what STAR is, we know what we need to do, but now we need to fill it. We need to fill STAR with some really good stories. So this is us going to long before the interview, and now, right? It's no better time than now. So we might look at things like volunteering, using some of the really great knowledge and skills that we're developing at KPU and putting them into practice through experiential projects, reflecting and demonstrating all the great stuff that we're learning through portfolios. We're going to by being an engaged student at KPU, we will develop really strong stories for ourselves. And all of these things will help us to control the narrative and interview well. So let's start first with volunteering. Oh, there we go. A Deloitte study revealed that 82%, that's a high number, 82% of hiring managers indicate that they prefer candidates with volunteer experience, and 85% were willing to overlook resume shortcomings if the candidate came with volunteer experience. So if you're thinking about volunteering, hopefully this number will light a fire under you to get started with that. How can you volunteer? Well, actually, Rose, who's moderating today's webinar, is our volunteer coordinator. So Rose can definitely get you set up with volunteering at KPU on campus. And then there's plenty of really great organizations that you can volunteer with off campus. Do they have to do with your with what you're studying at KPU? They can, but they certainly don't have to. It can be something that is a personal passion of yours, and it has nothing to do with what it is you're studying at KPU. It doesn't matter. It says a lot about who you are. It shows community engagement, and yeah, as we know, it looks great on a resume, right? Looks great on a resume. Volunteering can help us control the narrative by giving us really great stories to tell in an interview. Experiential projects. So taking it outside the classroom. KPU is a polytechnic university. There's a lot of practical components to what it is we learn. But why not take the initiative to take it outside the classroom and offer your skills somewhere? And I just have a few examples here. If you're in IT, perhaps you can develop or redesign a website for a local small business. If you're in marketing, perhaps you could design a social media campaign for a nonprofit. If you're in accounting, maybe you can offer to get a new small business up and running on a particular software. Feel free to write other ideas, and maybe you've already done this. You've taken some of those great skills that you're learning at KPU and you've applied it outside the classroom. Feel free to add it in the chat of ways that you've done this, or maybe this has just gotten the creative juices flowing and you're starting to get some ideas of how you can do that. Feel free to share that in the chat as well with your fellow classmates or peers. Portfolios. KPU has a lot of information about portfolios, particularly e-portfolios. And hopefully you all have them, or you will have them. They're an excellent way to keep track of your accomplishments, but also to connect those assignments and those group projects that you're doing in class to to a potential employer that will be viewing this portfolio, right? So connect what you're learning to how that's relevant to the working world. Include imagery wherever possible. You want to make it engaging and interesting. So feel free to be creative, right? You want it to kind of demonstrate your personality. That comes with personalizing it, of course, and it allows you to reflect on the learnings and how that can translate into the world of work. And make sure that you keep it up to date as you go and you're adding credentials as you go along. Be an engaged student. And again, just feel free to type in the chat how you yourself are an engaged student or how you plan on being an engaged student. So some ways would include joining a club. If there's a club that you would like to join that doesn't actually exist, then you can start your own. All clubs were formed by somebody. Participate in events like Career Day and other on-campus events that are happening. And you can find out more, of course, on Career Connection under events. Make sure that you're regularly engaging with your instructor by attending those office hours, having career conversations. Sometimes it's a great opportunity to brainstorm with people who know industry. And you might find out about some opportunities or perhaps even get some referrals. And of course, as we all, I'm sure, will agree, referrals are really, really good for interviews, right? Okay, so again, it's about controlling that narrative for yourself and giving yourself something to talk about long before you need to talk about it. So volunteer, take it outside the classroom with experiential projects, record all the great stuff that you're doing at KPU in the form of portfolios, personalize it, reflect on your learnings. This is information that you could potentially provide to a prospective employer, and be an engaged student. So don't just come to KPU, go to class and leave. What are some other ways that you can really immerse yourself in the student lifestyle? Okay, and then all of that leads us back to interviewing well and using STAR in order to really set the stage for a strong meeting. Okay, so we're gonna use one from the experiential projects suggestion that I have, taking it outside the classroom using STAR. So this is what it might look like in practice. So the first thing you want to do is answer the question first to build suspense. The question might be, do you have social media experience? Now you'll notice that this is actually a close-ended question, but really it's a behavioral style question in design, um, a hit completely in costume, basically a hidden behavioral style question. So, do you have any social media experience? And the answer is yes, I do. So, you're answering it right away. And then you're going to hit them with your killer response in the form of star. So, this is what it might look like. Yes, I do actually have social media experience. While I was taking my 300 level marketing class, I thought it would be a good idea to apply some of the great skills I was learning in a place where it would have a positive impact. I really love animals, so I thought I would start there. Situation. At this point, I'm leaning in, right? I'm leaning in. I want to hear what you have to say about this. This sounds really cool. Task. I took some time to review the social media presence of a few local animal rescue societies, and I noticed one that seemed to be struggling quite a bit called Hounds and Homes. I reached out to them with a proposal. Okay, so there's the task. A little bit of your action was in there as well. Action piece. During our initial meeting, I sat with them to determine their goals as an organization. They really had two: raise more money and get more animals adopted. From there, I was able to work with them to determine their social media goals, which then helped me to establish a social media strategy, raise awareness. Analyzing the metrics helped me to determine strategies, which included following, commenting on, and sharing content from popular influencers. We also opened a TikTok account and made the animals our stars. The result. Within the first 3 months, which was the timeline we had agreed on, I had developed a spreadsheet to track the analytics, allowing them to easily see which platform had the most traction and which post type garnered the most engagement. They were thrilled with the campaign and with the ease of taking it over. The overall engagement was up by over 300%. All right, so there you go. Situation, task, action, and result. So those four things, you could add you can add a reflection there, what this meant to you, perhaps. But those four items help you to organize your thoughts while answering the question in its entirety. Right. And it also, apart from showing and demonstrating those practical, hard marketing specific skills, you're also demonstrating a lot of really strong transferable and soft skills. Okay. Um, Great. So after the interview has happened, it's time for you to analyze, like, what went well? What was your overall impression? Do you want to work there? If they offered you an opportunity, did you get a good vibe? Would you actually want to work there? Um, what didn't go particularly well that you would perhaps change next time? Right? Make sure you jot down those questions that they asked you that you didn't know the answers to, or that you found that your answers weren't particularly strong enough. Did you ask about next steps? Right? Will there be a second interview? What will the date be? When should I hear back? And if I don't hear back from that time, who should I follow up with? And then, of course, you want to take some time to write a thank you note, right? So your thank you note can be an email is fine, and it can be sent anywhere between 2 to 24 hours. I would not recommend having thank you notes right then and there that you pass the interviewer or the panel of interviewers, because you do want to make sure that you're actually customizing the thank you note and you're mentioning something from the meeting itself. So you do want to reflect back to something that they said in the interview that you found particularly relevant or interesting, or whatever it might be. If it's a small business, small kind of ma and pa type, dropping off a handwritten thank you note might be really thoughtful as well. But again, anywhere between 2 to 24 hours, an email is okay. In that thank you note, you want to thank them for their time, reiterate your interest, make reference to something that was mentioned in the actual interview, and that because you were paying attention, that you look forward to the next steps of hearing from them by this particular date. Okay, so for those of you that attended the networking and navigating webinar, you might remember something like this. So with interviewing, it takes practice, right? So that was one of the tips earlier on in today's webinar is make sure that you practice. You can practice with a career coach, with a friend, with yourself, right? And so your goal might be to improve your interviewing skills so that you can get a job. But you want to apply the SMART technique to practicing and improving your interviewing skills. So you want to make sure that the goal that you set for yourself around improving your interviewing skills is specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. So let's take it from this to improve my interviewing skills so I can get a job. Well, how? What might that look like? And this is what it might look like. So to reduce my interview anxiety, for the next 5 days, I will record myself answering 2 interview questions per day using the STAR technique. I will then review and critique them. So this is what this might look like. Okay, so your overall goal is to perhaps find a rewarding career in sustainability or a rewarding career in blah. This is what our SMART goal was for the networking and navigating career fair webinar just the other day. I'll go to at least one event per month and reach out to one person per week for the next 6 months to expand my accounting network and build relationships in the sustainability industry. So that's a really big, heavy, SMART goal. So what we then do is we break it up into smaller, more achievable steps, right? So if we go to today's webinar, to reduce my interview anxiety for the next 5 days, and this is for someone who might be in active interviewing right now, but for the next 5 days, I will record myself answering 2 interview questions per day using the STAR technique. I'll then review and critique them, right? So that's our SMART goal to improve our interview skills. So what might that look like if we break that up into smaller, more achievable tasks? Well, the first thing we might want to do is review targeted company sites. Maybe we've met a few at Career Day for job postings and some application tips, which some companies do include. From there, we're going to review the job postings and the responsibilities. We then want to perhaps, identify some behavioral style questions that might be asked in the actual interview, and to help me come up with some responses to those behavioral style questions that reflect the responsibilities of the jobs I'm targeting. I might want to review my resume for ideas of what it is I should showcase and then put together some good STAR responses to that. So that's kind of what it might look like. Looks a little busy, but you can see we can take the SMART goal, break it up into smaller, more achievable tasks, things that we can do in 5, 10, 15 minutes a day. Just like the networking webinar and the resume and cover letter webinar, we also have an interview toolkit. So you can go ahead and scan this QR code. That'll take you over to Career Connections, specifically in the resource library, where you can find the interview toolkit there that discusses much of what we discussed today, plus a whole bunch more. It covers those general interview questions as well. Okay, so hopefully, for those of you that attended Career Day, hopefully you all got some stamps and submitted them. Rose is painstakingly going through them all now. There was a lot of those stamp cards submitted. So that, the draw for that, as well as and everyone that attended each of our webinars, all your names are going in to the draw to win gift cards, Sony headphones, Stanley Cups, lots of really, really great stuff. And that's happening tomorrow, as we said, on Instagram Live. And it's starting at 1:45, I believe, 1:45. So hopefully you'll join us for Instagram Live. Of course, if you have any questions, please do reach out to us at the Career Development Center. There's our number there. Make an appointment with a career coach on Advisor Connect, and you can view this webinar pretty soon, probably in the next day or two, as well as all of our other webinars that we've recorded and uploaded on our YouTube channel. So please do check us out there as well. I'm going to stop sharing and see if we have any questions.
Thank you so much, Chantel. It was really informative event for me. I learned a lot.
Good.
Um, the question that I'm seeing here is that is the QR code for rewards? No, it was for the career connection. If the question is for the last slide's QR code. But yeah, except that, let's just start with the questions. So should I bring my portfolio with me on my interview day, or should I attach it along with my application?
Great question. I would say typically you would bring that on to the actual interview. Now, sometimes though, if it's a link, you can certainly have that on, if it's a link to an e-portfolio, you can certainly have that on your resume directly. Sometimes we do have it kind of printed out, an actual portfolio. In that case, you can bring that to the interview and review that with them there.
Okay. Next we have for the behavioral questions, you mentioned that we can use the STAR technique in order to shine. But let's say nothing came in my mind during the interview session when I was asked a behavioral question. Can I just make something up during the interview?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. And, I referenced body language. Your body language will probably give you up. And, it probably will give you up. So the best thing you can do in that situation, if you can't actually come up with an answer, you can ask them if you can come back to that question. Can we revisit that question and just move on to the next one for now? I'm drawing a little bit of a blank, or I still need a little bit of time to think about that. So feel free to ask them to come back to that. If you really cannot think of anything, you can also give them a situational type of response. If you have no actual examples to pull from, you could say, I can't think of anything. However, this is what I would do in that situation. Right? So if you really needed to, you could go there and just kind of walk them through the steps that you would take in order to, reduce conflict or improve morale or, increase sales, whatever it might be.
Okay, that's really good approach. Thanks for answering that. Alex is asking if he can open up the mic to ask a question. So please feel free to turn on your mic and ask your question, Alex.
Hi, how are you, Chantal?
Hi, Alex.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for your time, actually, and your dedication. I just want to know and clarify. I understand how it works. The portfolio that you mentioned is more like a visual reference from your last project and all that the work that you had done before. But in a technical career, for example, a IT career, how it works the portfolio if you are like trying to do something like that in the interview.
Yeah, and so I know that I thank you, Alex, for that question. I know that in the IT programs at KPU, they do give you the opportunity to develop actual sites that demonstrate your skill set and projects that you've worked on. So in that case, that might look like links on your resume, like actual links to certain sites that demonstrate, your technical skills around that. So you can include that on your resume, either under your education section or under a section that is specifically dedicated to projects. When you include that link, on your resume, I would also recommend that you include a kind of a reflection, like a 1 or 2 line reflection of that particular project, like so that they understand when they click on that link, they have a little bit of backstory. Did that
Thank you
answer your
so much.
question, Alex?
Yes, sure. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Alex.
Next, we have Rakshita. It looks like they just raised their hands. So feel free to turn on your mic and ask the question, Rakshita.
Hey, hi, Chantal and Raz. Thank you
Hi,
so much.
Rakshita. Thank
I
you.
love to attend this webinar, and I got so much things to know about the interview. But I have a question regarding a portfolio. I have not so much knowledge regarding a portfolio, so I'm just thinking, will it be possible any webinar how to create a perfect portfolio when we are going for an interview?
Yeah, that's a great question, Rakshita. And in fact, there are a few. So the Learning Commons, KPU Learning Commons has quite a few webinars that have been recorded all around developing portfolios and how to use the different platforms and so forth. So you could probably check them out there. Yeah, I would say maybe Google that. We don't have any particular webinars around that, but certainly that's giving me some ideas for future ones. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Chantal.
You're very welcome, Rakshita. Yeah, so just Google KPU portfolios, and there's actually a few webinar recordings that are available.
Okay, next we have
Okay,
Hannah.
perfect. I'm so sorry.
All
That's
good,
okay.
Rakshita. Thanks for your question. We have Hannah raise up her hand. So do you want to just turn on your mic and ask your question?
Yeah, so hi. I have done like a couple of interviews before, but I always feel a little bit nervous while I'm doing the interview. Do you have any strategies to prevent that feeling nervous during the interview?
Yeah, thank you, Hannah. And you know what? I first want to start this off by saying it's completely normal to be nervous before an interview. You're interviewing because you think this could be a potential job that you'd like to do. So it's extremely normal to feel nervous. But there's certainly ways that we can alleviate or reduce some of those nerves. We'll never get rid of them completely, but practicing is a really, really great way to do this. You can practice by booking a meeting, rather. I was going to say an interview, booking a meeting with a career coach for a mock interview. The way that we do them maybe a little bit different, myself and Michelle, but the way that I like to do my mock interviews is I ask the student, okay, what's the particular role or the type of role that you would like to practice for? And from there, I develop questions that I think that you will be asked during that meeting. You come into the meeting with me. We'll do a brief kind of conversation about expectations and so forth, you and Chantal, the career coach. And then I actually get you to leave and knock on the door as though you're coming into the actual interview. And I pretend at that point that I am actually the interviewer. During the interview process, when I ask a question, if you stumble on your answer a little bit, I want you to continue, working through it. I request that you don't stop me and say, "Okay, Chantal, so at this point, I'm having a hard time. Like, how would I answer?" I don't want that. I want you to go ahead and try to work through it. And then at the end of the mock interview, I go back to Chantal, the career coach, and I debrief with you the whole process, and we have a handout that we use, and it's a really, really helpful way to again, not completely erase those nerves, but to reduce those nerves. So practicing, I would say, is probably the most effective way, and preparing, of course. So really understanding what the role is, identify what you would be doing in that role, and then look to your resume and your previous experience for ideas of, and examples of times that you actually used similar skills that you would need to use in this new position. And again, have stories to talk about. So make sure that you allow yourself those experiences through volunteering, through paid, part-time jobs, through being an engaged student, through experiential projects, through group, or academic activities. So give yourself something to talk about. Prepare by doing a mock interview, and really just kind of understand the role. That's really, all you can do. You can also, of course, look on Glassdoor. You can look on Indeed. Some people will post their reviews of what it was like to interview at a particular company, and they'll give some tips and some examples of some questions that they might have been asked during that time. So that could help you prepare as well. Hopefully that answered your question, Hannah.
Yeah, fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chantal, do you mind if I
Yes.
add just one more point in terms of this question?
Sure.
So it's one of my professors who just gave me this advice to keep that in mind, and it really helped me, which is as follows. If you're invited to an interview, that means that they really find something in your resume, or something that sparked from their viewpoint, and that's why they're inviting you to an interview. So all you need to do is just convince themselves more, um, with your experience, with your education and everything. So if you go to the interview with that mindset, um, it might help you to come a little bit more. Just keep that in
That's a
mind that
great
they
tip.
already loved you, and all they need is that some more information to convince them even more.
That's right. Thank you, Rose. Yeah, it's also important to remember that they're inviting you in for that interview because they do want to hire you, right? So that's just one important piece to remember as well. Thank you, Rose. They want to hire you. Otherwise, they wouldn't be interviewing you. So just remember that as well.
So moving on to the next question. Um, so during the interviews, I know that you mentioned that we can do research on the company, uh, but if that's a startup company or a small company that we really can't find any information on Google, is there anything else that we can do to know more about the company before the interview?
Yeah, another good question. So for those of you that attended the networking and navigating webinar, you might even be able to answer this question. Information meetings are a really great way to research a company even long before you apply to them, right? This will give you an idea for whether or not this is the type of company you want to work with, and B, if what kind of positions they might be hiring for. So you can start having those conversations a little bit early. When I say research the company, Google, yes, is a good place to start, but the best place to start is with the company itself and with people that work there. So information meetings are a really great way to uncover some great information. And of course, anytime you see those companies that you're targeting going to hiring fairs, make sure that you go there. Many of these companies, and you mentioned startup in your question, but a lot of those companies, they join associations, right, in order to network and expand their own business and so forth. And so have a look, like, does the industry that the job that you're interested in, that it's a part of, do they have an association associated with it? If so, join it as a student. It's typically no cost or very low cost. And that's another really great way to research and get connected with various companies too.
Okay, sounds awesome. I don't think we have any more questions, but If there is anything, last minute questions, please put them in the chat or just feel free to unmute your mic.
Okay. Well, I guess that's it. This is it for the webinar series for Career Day 2024. Thank you everyone that attended today. Thank you everyone that attended Career Day. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow during Instagram Live to find out who won, one of our many, many prizes. So thank you very much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.
There's Hannah raised up her hand. Hannah, do you have a last minute question?
Yeah. So
Sure.
the Instagram live will host at what time for tomorrow?
Yeah, so that'll be tomorrow at 1:45. That's when we'll get started. And that'll be on our Instagram channel. And that is, I think, at KPU CDC.
Yes, that is correct. I already put in the chat a few times.
Oh, great. Yeah,
But if you didn't
1:45 is
get
when it
Hannah,
starts. Yeah.
let me know. Yeah.
Can I interrupt for 1 second? Sorry. The team is meeting at 1:45 to organize ourselves. The draw will be at 2 p.m.
Oh, okay. There we go. Good to know. 2 p.m.
Thank you.
So the Instagram is called the KPU CDC.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Okay, thanks.